I don't believe that the people that were even trying to sell it to the people that were voting in it quite knew what was going on. I don't remember. I'm a reasonably intelligent human being. Nobody spoke about the Irish backstop. Nobody spoke about free trade agreements. It was, let's leave. Let's get 350 million a week extra into the National Health Service. Let's improve all of our lives. Let's take back control, right? It's worse now than it was 2 years ago.
Well, I mean, it's what I would like to happen would be Brexit. And Brexit would mean that we would leave the EU without a deal.
Without a deal?
We would save £39 billion. We would regain control of fishing. And we would also stop paying, every time your listeners go to the shops, they pay a tariff on non-EU imports. The 93% of the world that isn't in the EU is forced to pay tariffs. So there would be some economic benefits from that, and the biggest economic benefit would be there would be more democracy. What's actually happened, and this is my final point in this, is that over the last 20, 30 years, power has been surreptitiously ceded to people who haven't been elected, the five EU presidents who aren't elected.
Can we cut to the chase and talk in layman's terms? What you're saying is that you would like to see a situation where we leave the EU, we don't pay them the 39 billion, which, by the way, it just as an opinion, we're apparently going to pay 39 billion to be in a position that's worse than we were 2 years ago.
Charlie
right?
and I agree about that.
Look, Tim, let me just stick this in here, mate. Have you visited a few of your pubs before you got here? Because what you've just had to say, mate, is it's not going to happen. There's going to be no deal. There's going to be no Brexit, and there's going to be no May.
But I think we can all make those sort of assertions.
You believe that?
Charlie may well be right.
Undoubtedly. I mean, if you know. Tim's a great businessman and he runs a great business. And, you know, I'll still drink in these pubs after today, but we've got a different view here. The country's split over it. We need to all grow up. We all need to realise that what we want is the best for the country. And no way can the best be for the country. I mean, everybody knows, Tim, no deal. A bad deal is better than no deal. I mean, you know, Theresa May ain't business orientated.
No, agree with that.
Okay, and she's leading this campaign.
I'll tell you what I think, though, gentlemen, quickly. I'll tell you why I think she's still leading this campaign, because of the complete confusion, the inability for people to agree about absolutely anything, seemingly has enabled this woman to still be in 10 Downing Street. That's what I think.
You're right,
I honestly believe that.
But you know, Jeremy, a day's a number. Let's not kid anyone.
But are they?
Of course they are. Come on.
But I mean, every time there seems to be a coup, it seems to me, people backtrack.
She's a three-time loser. She supported Remain and she hid behind her desk. She called an election and she hid behind a daft slogan, strong and stable, never really said anything. And then she said, I'm going to take you out. Brexit means Brexit. We're going to leave the customs union, and she's lost at that. So she's not very good at the job.
Well, she's not very good.
If she was working for Charlie, he wouldn't leave her in charge of buying his loo seats.
Oh, right, okay. Bullcocks, you like what we did with that.
Bullcocks for Brexit.
Thank you. What's going to happen? Are we going to leave or are we going to stay? Are we going to pay him the money? What's going to happen?
Okay, look, let me just jump in here. Undoubtedly, as I said before, there's going to be no deal, there's going to be no Brexit, and there's going to be no Theresa May.
Yeah, but that sounds great. But do you genuinely believe that?
Well, I honestly do. I mean, look.
So what's going to happen after March 2019 then? Tell me.
What's going to happen?
Yeah.
I actually think there's going to be a people's vote. And, you know, everybody can disagree with me or agree. It was very close before, and I think now the truth's come out. They talk about they was going to put 350 million a week into the NHS. Mm-hmm. They reckon now, the experts, it's costing us 500 million a week.
But Charlie, with respect, people's vote is another referendum. At what point do you stop and go, we've had 2, we've had 3, we've had 4, we've had 5? But the fact of the matter is, or do you call another general election? Could any politician at this moment, and I'm not sticking up for Theresa May at all, the Labour Party split, the country split, Parliament split. Is anybody able to get this
Jeremy,
through?
that's why big constitutional issues like that are put to the people. It's rare in a referendum. That's why they asked the Scots. That's why in 1975, 43 years ago, they had a referendum on the common market as it was then. So when you stick a note through everyone's door, which David Cameron and Theresa May did, it said, you decide and this is the quote, the government will implement your decision, and that was to leave. You can't turn around then and say, oh, we haven't been able to negotiate a good deal.
You honestly believe that we will be better off financially and economically?
There is no question, and no one's arguing, apart from Charlie, with the maths, because
And
we have to pay
48% of the country.
39 billion in a few weeks. We'll save that with no deal, and our food prices will go down, Charlie.
The economy's gone down 2.5% since the referendum. They reckon we're costing us 66 billion at the moment that we've lost. So 39 billion that we've got to pay them is neither here nor there. You know and I know, Tim, there ain't nobody can prove anything we can be financially better off. I ain't doing this for business. I'm doing this purely on the basis of the economy and what's best.
Doing what?
Well, voting that we need to remain. I mean, we must be off our head. The sign was there when she started doing that stupid dance she done. That was the sign when you knew she's not all the ticket.
Agreed.
The woman needs locking up.
But you both.
That's going too far.
You both agree. Well,
what would you do with it then?
I said the other day, I thought that if her legacy was to make Jeremy Corbyn look electable, that's not a great thing, is it? But here's the point. Let's get back to Brexit, right? You sit on separate sides of the fence. That's understandable. You two sum up the great British public right now. I want to know what actually, forget the rhetoric, what's the reality? So we were told 2 years ago, let's put 350 million a week into the NHS that is creaking and needs our help. Let's get out of a place that tells us what we should buy and what we should sell and sets prices. We are an island. We've always been an island. We'll get it right. 53% of the 17 million or whatever it was voted for that. Done. Fine. Then it all starts. Did Cameron hold a referendum in the first place to try and cut UKIP off? Yes, he did. Did he need to? No. As the Prime Minister with the majority, he should have said, there, do it, and I'll implement it. But he did one because he stuck his neck on the line. I blame him massively, by the way, whatever anybody says. You say leave. You say stay. You say leave. In the end, right, for people listening, people in the country, you're both businessmen. You're perceived as successful businessmen. People read stuff every single day. They hear if we leave, there'll be an economic crisis. There won't be food. There won't be medicine. There won't be this. There won't be that. They hear if we leave, the EU, the EU will charge this and we'll be giving our money. People need to know the reality, gentlemen. What's going to happen?
The problem is, Jeremy, there's a very strong political angle in this.
I agree.
And both sides have made exaggerated claims. But that's why democracy works, because the public is far more intelligent than people say, and they can see through.
But then if the public are intelligent, Tim, with the greatest respect, this country should leave the EU because 53% of them voted. Why are we having a debate about another one?
Well, yeah, that's a
being
good
honest,
question.
If you're complimenting your democracy and saying the people's vote counts, 53% of the people that voted 2 years ago said we want out. Why isn't that enough for you, Charlie?
Well, they went on the basis of the lies that was told. We're now being told the truth. We now know
See,
our
I agree with that.
Well, you know what I mean? What I'm saying, Tim, if you had someone behind your bar lying, what would you do with them? You'd sack them.
I think there were exaggerations on both sides. So the 350 million, the BBC, for example, said it was really only a net half that. Then there was the 4,300 per household from the Remain side, which has been completely discredited. So, but the public is used to this. The public's intelligent, and that's why democracy works. They can see through it. They voted to leave. They heard the arguments. They couldn't have missed them about how we were going to go to hell in a handcart. And the situation remains the same. The main thing, I think, where the Remain guys have lost it in the last couple of years is the Remain went out on a limb to say on the immediately on a leave vote, the economy would go down the hill, and they said it would cause an immediate recession, and it hasn't.
Tim.
Unemployment's gone to the lowest level ever. I won't bore people with the statistics. Household income's at the highest level ever, in spite of what Charlie says. So things have gone pretty well. So people simply aren't going to believe that in another few weeks.
Kicked in yet.
No, they didn't say that. They said if you vote leave.
Well, I believe we're going to recession. I think it's that serious. We've had less and less NHS workers apply for work here. You know how important immigration is, and you're a great favour of it, I'd imagine. It keeps the country going. Now, if we leave it to her, she's going to stop free movement. London's going to come to a standstill.
Charlie, I'm a big believer in with a low birth rate that you should have a reasonable level of immigration. Australia has it, New Zealand, America, Singapore, over the years, and it goes hand in hand with good economic growth. The only bone of contention between me and you is I want it controlled by the government, and not controlled by people we haven't elected in Brussels.
Everything's got to be controlled, Tim. But what I'm trying to say is, she sold this Leave campaign on the basis of immigration, which a lot of people have voted on. I mean, yourself that what's been said has been very misleading. The truth is, not only are they not giving away 350 to the NHS we're saving, it's costing us 500 mil a week, right? So in the real world, we're 850 mil that it's costing us, which the government are lying about.
Look, I don't agree with your stats, but I will not go into the stats too much. But what I would say Charlie, is that the people who said they were going to cut immigration to 100,000, which is stupid. And I personally think it would be bad for the country, and this did the most damage to the Remain campaign, were David Cameron and Theresa May. They said they'd reduce it, whereas people knew within the EU you couldn't. And I and you don't know or believe strongly that that's too low a level of immigration. London's had a decent level of immigration for the last 20 years and done very well.
Hold a minute, ring that bell. Round one's out. No, I'm going to go to an ad break. There is loads to talk about. It's my bleeding show. Listen to me. You're doing, though, I want you to think about this during the ad break. I don't care what anybody through there says. You are doing exactly what the people on the street still don't get. There's people sending messages in. The fact is people are bored. They want facts, right? You're now talking about immigration. The people in Great Britain, right, the people who are here are saying, what is going to happen to our country, right? Okay. You're saying London will grind to a halt.
Yeah, construction sites will come to a standstill. You won't be able to get a cup of coffee. You probably won't even be able to get a pint.
If immigration is controlled?
Of course it is.
Why?
Well, because they're going to stop. They're going to cherry pick them. They're not going to allow the ones that we need in. We need all type of people in.
I'll throw something in the mix that will cause Kieran to throw himself out, right? Let's just do something that sounds... I just want you to think about the wider scale of what I'm saying. After the Second World War, fact, having been the most disgusting country and what it did, Nazi Germany we know, they had to close their borders. Somebody said this to me the other day. Think about what you want about this, Charlie, right?
Right.
Germany, quite rightly, completely crushed because of what it had done. They closed their borders, and for 30 years, what did Germany do? They became the producer of the most amazing series of manufacturing things, be that BMWs, Bang & Olufsen, be it Bosch, whatever it was, right? Suddenly, 20, 30 years later, they are massively competitive in the world. Here's the thing for both of you as we go into the break. If we leave the EU, can't Britain become more competitive, stand on its own feet, produce better things, use its own workers? Suddenly all the people that were working down the mines are away. Do something to make this country great again. Isn't that what people are saying about leaving? That we are under the control, it seems, of the rest of Europe? Do we need to find our identity? Do we need to find that we're competitive and we can do stuff? I don't know. That's one thing. The other thing is, that's all well and good to say that. The people who are saying leave, saying it's a frightening tactic. We're saying we're great and we're not. We haven't got products to sell. We haven't got markets to use, and we're going to fall on our backside. So at the end of round one, gentlemen, during this ad break, work out for me how the British people who are listening can benefit. If you want to be part, maybe agree with Tim, maybe agree with Charlie. 0344 499 1000. This is apparently the Jeremy Carr Radio Show, and they're convincing me that Brexit is interesting. Caroline Banks says, I'm totally sick of Brexit. If we're going to leave, get on with it. Talking Brexit is a pile of old rubbish. Will it be May's deal? No deal, no Brexit. We are joined by Charlie Mullins, OBE, Pimlico, Palamas. What a success story. Rod Stewart lookalike, and frankly, a man who says we have to stay in the interests of our economic security, our country and our business. Fair enough, Charlie?
Undoubtedly. Jobs and everything, I believe it's going to be a disaster. We've already got 34 other deals set up outside the EU. If we've got to renegotiate, it's going to take us years and years to renegotiate. Why would you stop something that's going pretty good for us at the moment. I just don't get it.
We're also joined by Tim Martin, founder and chairman of Wetherspoon. Tim, good afternoon. You disagree. You say we should absolutely go.
I say Rod Stewart lookalike has got it wrong. Do you think Brexit is sexy? Yes, yes, I do.
You think it's sexy? Why? Why?
Because I think in a few weeks from now we can be 39 billion better off than if we didn't do a deal. We can save customs tariffs that we currently pay, so prices in the shops will go down on the 29th of May and regain control of our fishing. So, and all the other things that poor old Charlie's worried about, we can overcome those.
Yeah.
But Keenan's right. Do you accept that we will economically have to take a couple of steps absolutely backwards to go forward? That there will be initially
On day
to people
one,
on the street an effect?
No, on day one, instead of it being a cliff edge, which is what people have called it, it will be the sunlit uplands, because now it's transpired Theresa May wants us to pay 39 billion quid. We'll be better off on the 29th of May if we just leave.
So you actually think now, no Brexit at all, no money to them, no 39 million, forget the EU, done?
Well, yes, basically yes.
Can I put something that I said in the break to you, Charlie, right?
Yeah.
You know, we talk all the time about Trump and everybody gets really impassioned, and that's fine. If Donald Trump was running this country, he'd have gone to Brussels, somebody said to me this week, and he'd have gone, you ain't getting your 39 billion, we're leaving, that's what the people voted for, you can stick it where the sun don't shine. That's what Tim's saying. What's wrong with that?
Well, you can't just go around sort of forcing people into situations, even if
But
Trump...
that's the will of the people.
Well, it ain't the will of the people, because the will of the people has now changed, and the will of the people now is more remain than what they are leave.
And
we
now
know
changed.
Well, it's changed. If they're doing voting now, they're saying 56% of people would now remain.
But that then begs the question that we were talking about, Charlie, about a referendum. So if you have a referendum on any particular subject at any time in your life, and then 4 months later, 4 years later...
2 years later.
But the fact is, at that moment, people voted for it.
But that's right. But what I'm trying to say is lies were told. 2 years down the line, we're entitled to change their mind. If we're going to be worse off, why can't we change their mind? It's like a boxing match. It was a very close fought contest. What's wrong with having another fight? And often there's a different result.
But
Well-
then you think about but then you think about governments, don't you? You vote for a party, they get into power, and 9 months later you think they're not very good. You don't get a chance. Maybe he's right, but they should. I don't know. Then you've got There's fixed parliaments now, so you have to wait 5 years.
It's impossible when the whole issue has been handed over to the British public in a referendum.
Do you not think it
And
should
the
have been?
government- the
Do you not think it should have been?
I think it should have been, because that's what happens in big constitutional issues, like in Scotland and like 1975 as regards the common market. So it had to be. It was on the paper that was sent by the government to every household saying, we will implement what you decide. They can't go back now and say they aren't going to do it.
Yeah,
but also, Charlie, the thing is, you said that there's a lot of different polls going around the place.
Sure.
But the polls on the very day of the referendum said that Remain was going to be win by something along
Tim,
the lines of what you
look,
just said.
Tim, look, mate, honestly, I only want what's best for everyone. You know, I ain't here to have a row with anyone. I'm here to prove a point that...
Which is what?
Sorry?
Which is what?
Well, the point is that for us to leave would be disaster. And look, maybe we got Jaguars have got it wrong. They're moving. You've got Lloyd's of London Insurance are setting up in Europe. You've got BMW are moving. You've got Mike Carney are already saying it's costing us £40 billion. Each household is £900 a week worse off at the moment. So what do you think then? Sorry, £900 a year worse off.
Well,
so have they all got it wrong, Tim?
Well, if you pay £39 billion, that's £600 per person.
Yeah.
People get bored with these statistics. But I think, going back to the Rod Stewart analogy there, it was Maggie May. Our problem is Theresa May.
He's getting better by the minute.
She needs to wake up, Maggie, I think, you know what I mean?
Most people in this debate, this isn't about Theresa May. So let me just give you something else that happened to me this week. Somebody said, and I said it to you earlier and you batted it away. So Theresa May, you're absolutely right, was a Remainer who's managed to grasp the leadership of the Tory party and become Prime Minister, and apparently then wants to push through a Brexit that everybody knows she won't get through Parliament, by the way.
Exactly.
Not in a million years will that go through Parliament. That's an absolute fact. Might she recover? The thing I said to you during the break that I always think, you say on the 29th, we'll leave, and on the 30th the sun will come out and everything will be great. You're saying on the 30th everything will tank, the world will go down. How many of the politicians that maybe tried to sell it 2 years ago, how many of the politicians right now who are trying to, get it through. And Rees-Mogg standing like some Roman emperor on the steps outside Parliament. He's just a backbench MP. Hold on one second. What I was going to say was, how many of these people, Theresa May downwards, actually are interested in the British public and what's right? How many of them are talking about from personal political interest? And for people, without upsetting you both, listening to this, Charlie, are you saying that we should stay because you care about the British public or because you want Pimlico Plumbers, which is doing very well in the present situation, to carry on? Same as Wetherspoons. That's what I'm saying to you both.
I'm not here from a business point of view. You're right, we're doing very well, and thankfully customers are using us.
I've got a problem with the tap in one of my bathrooms, by the way. We need to talk about that.
But what I'm trying to say is this ain't about that. I'm talking about the country in general. And look, if Tim could prove, or the leaving was the best move for the country, I'll go with it. But I like many other people, are not convinced. I think we've got a person in charge that I won't put her in charge of a broom on my company.
Well, I agree with that. But the
so we're all in agreement. But then let me take the devil's advocate side. She's in an impossible position with a bunch of people who spent the entire time arguing almost from their own ends.
Yeah.
Is she trying to do what's best for the country? I don't know.
In a rare moment of truth, I was listening to Michael Heseltine, who's a tremendously strong Remainer, the other day.
He's also about the most disloyal person in the world, isn't he?
True,
if you get me on Heseltine, yeah.
True, but he said he was asked why Theresa May hadn't negotiated a good deal, and he said, "Well, look, she's a Remainer." That's why, and she's surrounded by Remainers, so she can't. I'm a Remainer too. I couldn't. It needed someone who believed in Brexit. So we've, as a country, somehow we've believed the myth that you can have a dyed-in-the-wool Remainer.
I'll tell you what I think's happened. I'll tell you what I think's happened. We've actually destroyed the myth that a referendum and the vote, well, the voice of the British people matters, because we go back there again. I said to Kieran earlier, whatever you say about how many people voted 2 years ago, a majority said, let's leave.
That's right.
We are basically in danger of saying, let's have another one. Let's get a vote on the deal. We're in danger of saying, whether it's right or wrong, actually, do you know what? A referendum ain't worth jack to anybody because the British people's voice shouldn't be heard. That's true. The people who voted and were a majority. When you stand as an MP, if you get 53%, you're going to win the seat. Are the other 47% going to say for 5 years we need another vote? Because you know that man that won, he didn't actually say that.
Yeah, but Jeremy, the campaign was done on lies.
I think both sides were done on lies,
you are right
Charlie.
there.
I think it became a personal... Don't you all think that?
Yeah, but what I'm saying, if you guys, you leavers are so confident, why don't we call it on and have another referendum? Let's have a people's vote. What's the big deal then?
Why don't we call it on? There are leavers, I guess, who are saying, we've had one, we should just leave. That's what you're saying,
but it was
right?
illegal. It was illegal.
Right, hold on a second. Now, what does that mean?
Well, it wasn't void.
Why?
Well, because of the lies they told. They misled people about immigration.
I mean, all right. Okay.
The lies were... There were a lot...
My colours are coming out now. You're telling me that the people that said stay weren't lying then, yeah?
Well, I
think there were lies on both sides.
You're right.
I genuinely believe that the worst thing about 2 years ago, and I started saying this about 40 minutes ago, was that it became, for me, a big political thing, a big personal thing for people. It wasn't about fact. Where's that money for the NHS? For all those Brexiteers, where's that 350 million? That is the biggest con I've ever heard in my life, that the lies that Johnson said, that's a fact.
Jeremy,
hold on a second, there were lies on the Remain
hold on,
side
but let me
as
just
well.
take you back to the lie on the bus. That was
David Cameron talked rubbish about
that was the biggest persuasion, and I believe that was the difference of the leavers winning the vote was the lies on the bus.
All right, but what about George Osborne? George Osborne is now the editor of the Evening Standard. Freely admits that Project Fear, that he and Cameron believed would get their little pony through the door, was absolutely overcooked. George Osborne has said that. So both sides, that's what I think the British public think, which is, do you know what? They were lying, they're lying, and it's just one big goddamn
let's go
argument.
back, let's do it properly then and have another referendum or people's vote.
Where no one's allowed to fib.
Oh, yeah, but
Charlie, that's I'm trying to think of another Rod Stewart song. That's a dream.
Well, all I'm saying is, what's wrong with having a people's vote? Things have changed. Let's do it more legal today. Let's stop the lies. Most of these politicians are doing it for their own.
You were one of the leading lies. Did you lie? Did you lie?
I said...
Did you say there was 350 million?
2 months before, I thought it was a really stupid thing to do, which I've written about, to say 350 million. It was far better to say, which I said on Question Time 2 months before, it's half that. But the whole of the audience and the whole of the panel said... they knew
But you know, I'm
that
going to
the
ask
figure
you,
was an
But
exaggeration.
you know what I'm going to
So the
ask you.
public's
You know
not
what I'm going to
stupid.
ask you.
Go ahead.
When you were on Question Time and that came up and they were on the buses and it was part of your campaign, did you say that's not acceptable, that's rubbish, or did you think that'll get us over the line? I'm not gonna say anything.
What I said was the net amount is.
But why didn't you get? If you were such a
163
big
million.
light, why didn't you get those bus things taken down? Because it is, but it isn't the only bit of lies.
Well,
but it's a fact.
I think it'll bore your listeners if we get into it.
I think they're bored
it is,
anyhow
they
with
might
Brexit.
be.
Thanks very much.
350 million is the gross amount that you pay. That you get rebated half that, but it comes to institutions in the UK that the EU supports. So, for example, do they give the money to the poorest? No, they give it to the biggest landowners. Michael Heseltine gets 900,000 quid.
Would it be fair? Would it be fair to say that both sides lie? You hung around with Nigel Farage. You must have been sat next to him.
I've sat next to him twice when he's been making a speech, and I've also made a speech. I didn't think that he lied. No, I thought he was.
Tim, you
told
can
the
always tell
truth.
when he's lying when his lips move.
And you are a Cameron, David Cameron. This is what I don't get to this day. And I've said to Kay for 2 years, right? If you've got a majority, I said it all right. You do something for the British people. You sit in Downing Street and you implement it. What he and George Osborne said was the biggest part. Project Fear was rubbish, wasn't it, Charlie? Come on. It was based on fear.
Well, I think
and it blew up in his face.
It was based on the view that the British public isn't very intelligent.
But that's what
And
asking
if
for
you
a second
if you
referendum's going to
spin
do.
lies to them, they won't be able to see through them.
What,
But
like
if you
350 million a week?
If you believe in democracy, you believe that both sides can debate it, and if you have a 2 or 3 month run-in, the public will be able to see through. Anyone can comment, they can listen to this show, they can look up the stats, and I believe that it's the best system for exposing lies and allowing people to make up their minds.
Okay, but look, what's wrong with having other people's vote? That's the point I'm not getting with you. If you guys are so confident, if it's such a good thing...
It's exactly what Jeremy says. You know, you're 1-1 at half-time, then it goes to extra time, and it could go on for 10, 15 years. There was one vote in 75, they implemented it. Vote in 2014 in Scotland.
Tim, let's move back to, will the deal get passed through Parliament?
Well, I hope that the deal won't, and that we therefore leave with no deal. And everyone that he sells
so
his
now
plumbing
you're saying
services
no
are
deal's
better
better
off.
than a bad deal.
Much
Okay,
no deal's much
the world
better.
I come from, half a loaf of bread is better than no bread at all.
Well, I think...
Sorry, can we just redo that, please? Just because I know I've got jet lag. What did you just say?
Half a loaf of bread is better than no bread at all.
It's another song. No,
it's not a song. You know what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if we're...
So a no deal would frighten you more than a bad deal?
Of course it would. You know what I mean? We don't know what we're letting ourselves in for, do we?
And you're campaigning for a no deal. Tell me how we benefit from a no deal then, Tim.
Well, it's the main thing is you avoid paying 39 billion on day one. You get rid of the tariffs on oranges, coffee, and 12,000 other things, children's clothes that the EU forces us to charge. You know where the tariffs go? To the UK Treasury? No.
Can I ask you a question? Because we're gonna be at the end of round two in a sec. You know, 2 years ago when you were stood next to Farage and you were saying, we need to leave, did you advocate a no deal then?
Well, I don't think it got into that level of detail, but yes, I said...
Most people on your side 2 years ago were saying a no deal was an absolute disaster and it should have to be,
No one said that on our side.
Look, even May was saying that.
They didn't say that,
even
Jeremy.
She was
That's an
that.
exaggeration. They said... What most of them said
Hasn't everybody moved their opinion is what I'm trying to basically say.
Well, after 2 years of debate and analysis of the thing by lots of newspapers, by lawyers, etc., it's right that people have modified what they've said and what they understand. I'm sure the public understands a lot more about tariffs and about the EU than it did a few years ago, which has got to be a plus.
Do you both, at the end of round two, Charlie, bring you in massively in here, do you both believe that more honesty should have been implemented 2 years ago on both sides to the British public?
Undoubtedly.
On the office wall of Wetherspoon, we've got a quote from a Jewish emigre to America who was very successful. Sell cheap and tell the truth. And that works in the long run.
But the British public are not interested in that, Tim. What they're interested about the future of the country. They're not bothered about money. They're not bothered about... What they are really bothered about is, NHS, immigration, people's jobs, people's livelihoods.
But that is money.
Okay, but what I'm trying to say, we're concerned about our future welfare. businesses have stopped investing here. You know, I mean, you're a great business guy, and I just got to presume you've got some deal wrapped up like outside the EU, have you?
Well, what we started doing.
Direct question, Tim.
Yeah, I'm going to answer it directly. What we've done is we've started, because everyone said it's, which I don't believe, the ports of Dover are going to become a lorry park, so we won't be able to import from the EU. We have switched to buying brandy, Jägermeister, wheat beer, and 101 other products from America.
Exactly.
And other countries. So,
exactly, but I'm saying, so you don't need the EU. So from a business point of view, it's a great deal for Tim.
Well, 90% of companies don't trade with the EU, so we do trade with them, and we've been able to switch. So what the point is, it's that any problems that there are can be overcome.
Right,
Charlie.
2, push that bell, and around 2. That's it. Right, okay. In the next bit, right. How does this impact on your business? I need some water. How does it impact on your business? Did my voice again? It's great. It's absolutely brilliant. So Charlie Mullins, Pimlico Plumbers, and Tim Martin, founder and chairman of Wetherspoon, on separate sides of the Brexit fence. One thing that comes out of this, whatever your opinion, is this is something that has split the country. It's split the country socially, economically, morally. Everybody seems to have a different opinion. There are certain things we all agree on. You know, May is seemingly there under, I don't know, false pretenses. Can she get it done? Will it go through? Business-wise, though, Charlie, how does this affect? I mean, are you saying we should stay? Because I'm being honest, it's doing very well. It won't if we drop all of that and go on our own. Is this personal interest? What will happen? What is happening? What could happen to Pimlico Plumbers?
We don't. As a company, we don't necessarily deal direct with the EU, but I'm sure a lot of our customers work with it. I believe if it affects the economy, it'll affect everybody. I also believe that the NHS problem of shortage of staff is a massive thing. Got nothing to do with my business at all. But at the end of the day, we have to worry about us as a country, not just about money.
You said something earlier, and I just want to bring it up, and I know, because I can look through the glass and everybody go, oh, he's going to talk about immigration, oh my God. Well, we live in a country where we debate things. You talk about the NHS. How come there are still 3 million people unemployed in the United Kingdom, and yet a lot of the jobs in the NHS are from people who have come from other countries, skilled people, because the people in the United Kingdom don't want... I mean, here's a fact for you. I'm not saying immigration should stop or stay, but why is it that so many of the skilled jobs in the NHS are being done by people, from other countries? Why is that?
Undoubtedly, wages needs to go up, and there's one big problem out there of why we've got so much of unemployment. It's called benefits. If they change the benefit system and only give it to the people that need it and not the people draining off the country, these people will fill the jobs.
Well, you know what? Somebody said to me once, and you know what I do during the day, right? Somebody said to me once that in the old days, actually, one of the greatest inventions in the modern world was the benefit system, a system that says morally to people who cannot look after themselves, we as a society, right, will look after you. I think that's incredibly powerful. But nowadays, it's changed. There are too many loopholes. Here's the thing. Now you say there's 3 choices when you finish school. You can go to university, you can go to college, or you can go to work, or you can go on benefits. It was never meant as a career choice. You talk about immigration. I think, right, that people in this country should be doing the jobs that people are coming in from other countries.
I totally agree with
disrespect
you.
to them,
Totally
right?
agree with you.
But that's part of the argument about standing on our own 2 feet, isn't it?
Well, I
don't know.
I think that you can get too carried away about. Certainly, there are no doubt some people who abuse the system, but you've got to remember that
you've only got to watch his Jeremy Cole show.
Unemployment is down at 4%. We've got the most jobs we've ever had in the last 50 years.
Still got millions of people on benefits, though, Tim.
And there are people on benefits. Not all of them can work who get benefits,
absolutely,
as you know.
Absolutely.
So, all you can do in any sophisticated society is try and put in a system, get into the detail of the system, so that you just encourage people who aren't working to work.
I guess the reason I wanted to say it from that point of view to you both was the problems that we've got in this country, social, economic, work, whatever they are they going to be, this is my point, are they going to be made easier, better, solved by leaving and standing on our own 2 feet, or are they going to be made even worse by standing on our own 2 feet with what everybody says is going to happen?
I think if you look around the world, Jeremy, we can all see that the most well-off countries with the most freedom of speech and the best legal systems and the most protection for individual rights are democracies. As soon as you lose democracy, you always end up with an idiot in charge.
Right.
And the main argument, when you stand back from all these mini arguments which go on, the big argument in favour of leaving the EU is it will increase the level of democracy. Us three today, within walking distance of Parliament, we can go in there, lobby MPs, and they can decide. The most frustrating thing that people have found about being in the EU over the last years, as it's accrued more power to itself, is you go along there and your MP says, or the press says, well, of course, this is a European issue. And then it becomes almost impossible. It's difficult enough to get your MP in Parliament to do anything. As soon as they say it's the EU, you're stuffed because it's too remote, it's not democratic, and so on.
Tim, unemployment will get worse if we Brexit, and the reason that'll be is that a lot of the people won't take the jobs. They won't be allowed to come over, like the ones that work in this agriculture, etc., and air people won't take them because the benefit system pays too well. The people that need it should be given more money, and the people that are draining the country should be put into work.
Well, in principle, I agree that people shouldn't be paid to do nothing if they can work. I think most people of all political parties agree with that. And I also agree that that you need a certain level of sensible immigration control by the government. So in a way, I'm not arguing with many of the points you're saying, but it's easier to fix these issues if MPs that you elect every 5 years, or sometimes a bit less than 5 years, are charged with the problem, and you vote them out.
I have to say, you've achieved something today. I consider Brexit, or I have done before this hour, as the most boring thing in the world. I've enjoyed our conversation immensely. Whether you sit on Tim's side of the fence that we should leave, tell them to shove their money and get on with it and prove that we can. Whether you sit on Charlie's side, listen, I really appreciate your time. What will be, I guess, will be. And just to finish, to prove that this attempt at a radio programme isn't thrown together, you, Tim, believe that we should leave, and we've made many analogies, and thank you for your time. And Charlie, you believe that this country, if it leaves, is going to go down the drain.
That's a good plug.